Okay, it is time to get into our top 5 cards that are better in the comics than in Marvel Snap. Tell the people what the concept is in regards that relates the top 5 to the battle.
Well, okay, so we talked about doing a battle with the deck builder, and I was just going to say, hey, pick your favorite card or something. My initial approach was going to be, okay, enough of me complaining about Luke Cage getting nerfed. What do you suggest, deck builder, that I do with Luke Cage? Then I thought, well, if we're talking about characters on cards where we like the character better in the comics than we do the card on Snap, why not let our number 1 reflect that?
Right.
Why not let that be the one we build the deck around? See if the deck builder can change our minds.
What we're going to do first is our top 5 here to figure out what that number 1 card is. And I feel strongly that we may overlap at least with that one. I don't know about the other ones though. There's a possibility that I think there might be one other one on here that we will overlap on. So let me go ahead.
I think I know one that'll be on your list that isn't on mine.
Okay. All right. Well, let's find out. Here we go. I'm going to start out number 5. So my number 5 card that is better in the comics than in Marvel Snap. And this was a tough list, by the way. I could do the inverse of this list easy. The other way around is tough for me because when you're looking at the cards that they came up with, for example, Punisher was going to be on my list. But then I was like, you know what?
I'm surprised he's not. That was the one I expected.
I can't make an argument for that because I have to think about, okay, what is his realistic position in the Marvel universe and in comics? And does Marvel Snap represent his position in Marvel Comics? I want the most for the guy. I love Frank Castle. I want to see him win a lot, but do I need to expect that? I can't. So as far as his ability in Marvel Snap and how much I like him in comics, sure, I'd like him to be a little bit better, but I realistically, can I actually say, well, this is number 5 or this is number 1? I couldn't do it. So he's not on my list. That's why it was tough for me because I probably overthought it. But this is how I looked at things was like, okay, well, I may like this comic book character a lot. So how does Marvel Snap represent them? And are they being represented as best as they should be?
See, we went about this a different way because my number 5 is probably extremely comic accurate, but I don't use the card very much.
Okay, and that was the other thing I was looking at too. I was looking at cards that I didn't use as much, and there are easily going to be some cards on this list on my end that I've never used. I don't think either I have used or I could count on my one hand, as many times as I have. So I'm going to start out with number 5, which is a bit of the whole reason why I went and launched into this, man, this list was hard kind of thing, was because I like this character a lot in the comics and I don't use them as much as I should in Marvel Snap. Although I have definitely felt the presence of this character in the decks that I created, and that is Bishop.
Okay.
A time-traveling cop on a mission to save the future. He's like my favorite pair of comfy socks. I'd love to fit him in my decks, but alas, the comic version steals my heart. So I've read plenty of stories. If you listen to any source material in the past, I've probably expressed my affinity, how much I love the X books back in the 90s. Bishop was easily a great representation of that. And you got time travel involved. You got this, you got that. And as far as Marvel Snap goes, it's just like, okay, he gets a little bit stronger as more people show up. All right. Well, I don't like him as much in Snap as I do in the comics, that's for sure. So there you go. Number 5, Bishop for me.
All right. Number 5 for me is a character I always say I really like, and then I'm like, what have I read with him in it? But he looks awesome. And he was in one of my all-time favorite comics, heavily featured in West Coast Avengers number 41, and all his cards look great, including especially his pixel variant, but as much as I like him, I don't use Moon Knight very much.
Moon Knight. So on my end, I use Moon Knight a lot in my discard deck, so that's why I didn't think of putting him on my list.
but I don't know what he's going to do. And that's very comic accurate because Mark Spector is not the most balanced fella. So as much damage as he can do, he can come back to bite you. I always, when the show came out, I did posts on my blog about that time Moon Knight got stuck in a water tower and that time Moon Knight defeated the Avengers and took over the world single-handedly. So he runs the gamut, but his power is your opponent randomly discards one and you randomly discard one. And Colleen Wing, Blade, Sif, you have an idea of what's going to get discarded. Silver Samurai, Moon Knight, no clue. So yeah, you can take out something of theirs, but you don't know what you're going to lose. And having Moon Knight on your side in the comics, yeah, he could help you out, or he could be a big problem. But as awesome as he looks and as cool as I think he is, I just do not put him in my deck very often.
Yeah. Okay. All right, then. You're next, number 4.
Number 4, one of my all-time favorite comic series is the original Defenders. The non-team started with Namor, Hulk, Doctor Strange, and eventually the Silver Surfer. 4 guys who arguably should not be regular members of teams. Doctor Strange always shows up to help, but you hang around Doctor Strange for a while, he gets on your nerves.
Yeah, you want.
He is not as put together as he seems when he just comes in and he's like, "Oh, that's a demon, banish." He's not as messed up as Dr. Druid. But still, the Doctor Strange is not my answer to this. But the reason that I love this character is because she was prominently featured in Defenders. And as much as I would love to use her and have tried to use her, I just don't find myself playing Valkyrie that much.
Valkyrie, yeah.
She's a 5-cost, 3 power. She makes every card at that location a 3 power. It's a fun effect, but it's one of those that I often think, okay, just because I can do it, should I do it?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So it's just it's a cool idea. I'm not sure what it has to do with Valkyrie herself, but it's a neat effect, and I'm like, oh, it'd be cool if I did this. But then I think, but there's so many other cards that I can just play and get the effect I want. It's fun to try to strategize it and plan, but it seems like it's more effort than it's worth for the payoff. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean I love Valkyrie any less.
Mm-hmm. It's a good pick. Yeah, I've used her a bit there for a while. I think I ended up taking her to, oh my goodness, I'm pretty certain I got the foil background. I might even got an extra thing.
You got the baby variant with Throg.
Oh yeah, I got the Throg variant. I like that one. I haven't done much with that variant, but yeah, that's it. Okay, all right, I get you. All right, number 4, Kang the Conqueror.
Ah, yes.
So
that's a card that I like better in Snap than actually playing in Snap. I was telling somebody about it. I'm like, that card should be awesome, and it's just not.
It isn't.
I love that it exists. I love what it does. I love the way that I talk over top of you when it's your entry on the list instead of mine. But
loving villains more in comics than a Marvel Snap? Well, yes, indeed. Despite his epic powers, he's a rarity in the game. You don't see him very often.
He's a better avatar than a card.
Yeah, right. In the comics,
I did pull the trigger and use the DJ Kang avatar and change my username to He Who Remixes.
Oh, so great. In that first game, who was it you played? You played
I played somebody who their username was He Who Remains.
He Who Remains.
And they did the Spider-Man point at me.
Yeah, in the comics, he's a multi-layered big bad. My goodness. Have you read Avengers Forever? It's one of the best showcases of Kang the Conqueror, I think, in my opinion. It's probably one of the only real good ones that I recall reading. And I haven't read everything, but I absolutely love Kang in the comics as much as you can love a villain. I think that he's...
Well, you love the Punisher, so...
Right. You got a point. But yeah, look, his powers, and just like you said, his on reveal in Snap should have been just world changing, and it sort of is. The problem is it happens so late in the game sometimes that you're usually locked into how things are going to go down anyway, but you never know. But regardless, definitely appreciate Kang the Conqueror more in comics than I do in Marvel Snap. All right, so go on to number 3. All right, this top 3, number 1 was real easy for me. 2 and 3 were actually interchangeable for a little bit, but I landed on Cyclops for number 3. All right. The often criticized X-Men leader in comics, he might be labeled bland, but he did lead them once. That counts for something. He's got family issues. Well, when I say family issues, we're talking about the fact that his son ended up going into the future, married a girl that looked like his ex-girlfriend. There's a lot of stuff going on with Cyclops. And Snap just doesn't, I don't think Snap does him justice unless there's a high evolutionary twist.
Ooh.
Yeah, which only amplifies my distaste for the Cyclops card. So that is my number 3. Cyclops, I'm appreciating much more in the comics than I would ever in Marvel Snap. It's a card that I don't have any use for. If I get high evolutionary by accident at some point, maybe. Has he been a thorn in my side? Yes. But it's only because high evolutionary is there. I've not seen Cyclops just thrown out there willy-nilly because high evolutionary wasn't backing him. It's been a long time if that's the case.
I used to have him run with Patriot, just like in those classic X-Men Young Avengers crossovers.
All the time. All right, what's your number 3?
My number 3 is a character. I love that he exists in comics. I love that he technically has appeared in the MCU. I love that he is in Marvel Snap. I love that he's in HeroClix. But I just don't find myself using him as often as I once did, and as often as I would like to. He's too unpredictable for me. You're chaos, and I'm more order when it comes to Snap, and that's why Lockjaw is often in my doghouse.
Oh, Lockjaw! Wow.
I love Lockjaw in the comics. I like Lockjaw and Snap, but every time I start to put him on there, I'm like, well, no, what if he brings Blob out too soon? Or what if he does this? So I have that sweet venomized Lockjaw variant, but I start putting him in decks, and I'm like, no, I don't know. Don't want to pop Havoc out there too soon. Just too many variables there. A lot of times I leave him out.
Okay, all right then.
Even though I would advocate for Lockjaw to appear in almost any story.
He's a good boy. All right then. Then you got to go to number 2.
Number 2, one of my very favorite comic book characters there is. Marvel, DC, heck, one of my favorite characters in fiction.
Oh wow!
Just he's the quintessential everyman and underdog. I love it when he shows up in comics. His team-up series I like even more than Defenders, which I just gushed about. The ever-loving Blue-Eyed Thing.
Oh, man.
But in Marvel Snap, he's a 4-cost 6 power. The animation when the High Evolutionary lets him throw stuff is pretty cool. But there's too many other 4-cost cards with really cool powers and sometimes really cool abilities and sometimes even more than the thing's 6 power. So he's just not gonna, unless it's like a special theme deck or something, he's just not gonna make the cut. So he's one of my most favorite characters there is. But not even that pixel variant can wedge its way into many of my decks.
I remember in the early days of playing that you pointed out to me one of Ben Grimm's biggest flaws when it comes to the game, and that's the fact that why don't I just use Emma Frost?
Yeah,
and that's sad. Really, what should happen here? I know that the theme for these no ability characters is to have one for each cost range, I think, if I remember correctly. So if you're not going to nerf things power, you need to nerf Emma Frost's power. That's about the only thing. That's about the only offset I can see. And I will tell you, that's a really, really good pick right there.
Yeah, unless you're using High Evolutionary or Patriot.
Yeah,
there's no reason to put thing in your deck.
Right. Emma
Frost, yeah, sure, she works with Collector, but if all else fails, 4/6 or 4/6, and I get another card.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I completely feel you there. I completely understand, because this next one for my number 2 is one of the characters that you will probably come to mind. It probably comes to mind once you think of the thing, and that's the Hulk.
Yeah. He almost made my list.
Yeah, I do not have him in hardly any of my decks. Comics have treated Hulk to some epic stories, though. I mean, we're talking about a Marvel season right now that is built around one of the better stories that has been told. But there's a lot of great stories that involve the Hulk out there. Let's talk about World War Hulk. Let's talk about the Microverse adventures. All right. All of these stories, there's some great stuff out there, but Marvel Snap, nowhere to be found in my decks. And he's always crashing parties too, for me. Because somebody's got him with the high evolutionary. The high evolutionary strikes again, folks. This is what, the third time we've mentioned him on this list, and it makes me like the Hulk even less when it comes to Marvel Snap, because I'm always expecting him to show up. If I see the glow, I'm like, okay, well, Abomination Hulk is going to happen somewhere. If I got initiative, which a lot of times they make sure that I do somehow, then I'm not going to have the advantage here in order to knock him out with my Shang-Chi, or I'll have to get lucky somehow. But yeah, the Hulk is my number 2 for sure. We're going to come down to number 1. I'm going to go ahead. I'll read the description.
Okay.
So it's fitting that this person tops the list. Just like that time that he needed another person's powers when we talked earlier about this same very character in another top 5. Remember when he faced down Thanos in Infinity Gauntlet? How about, do you remember the story Civil War? Those became films for a reason. Anybody remember Capwolf? Comics truly do. That's right. Comics truly do justice to Cap more than Marvel Snap ever could. Captain America, my number 1.
Not my number 1.
Oh, wow. I was on pins and needles there. I could have swore we'd be at right there. All right, then. Well,
Jesse,
then.
my number 1 has more fur than Captain America usually does, and has also faced down Thanos, although it worked out better for her than it did for Cap.
Oh, boy.
You should have known she'd be at the top of the list because she's unbeatable. At least she is in the comics, not so much in Marvel Snap.
Oh, man.
Squirrel Girl.
Perfect.
You go ahead. Why don't you like Cap as much in Snap as you do in the comics?
He's not anything that I ever play. I don't have him in any decks. It's just not going to happen. And I think a lot of that is because he's kind of one note in Snap.
Yeah.
And how many times have we complained that he's totally misrepresented as to what he should be doing?
Patriot is a better Cap in Marvel Snap than Cap is.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You might say that the ability they've given him has capped his usefulness. I might.
Number 1 for you is Squirrel Girl. I should have seen that coming. For a second there, I said, hey, almost made my list. I was thinking you were like, he's going to go with Beast. Nope. Okay. Squirrel Girl.
No, Squirrel Girl, her ability is accurate. She brings the squirrels. But maybe I'm doing exactly what you said you wouldn't do with the Punisher, because in the pages of Squirrel Girl, yes, she is unbeatable. There was an issue of Fantastic Four that Dan Slott wrote where she was defeated almost off panel. So although, as I said when we covered on source material the first volume of Squirrel Girl, I came to a point where I said, well, how does this fit with Marvel continuity? And I decided that Marvel continuity needs to fit with Ryan North's Squirrel Girl. So, yeah, when we did the cards that should have other cards' abilities, she was my number 3. Said she should at least have M'Baku's ability, if not Captain Marvel's. Move to where she wins you the game, if possible, because she is unbeatable. Squirrel Girl, I've said it on this channel before, is unironically my favorite comic book character. The Unbeatable Squirrel Girl by Ryan North, all 58 issues, and the trade paperback Squirrel Girl Beats Up the Marvel Universe is my favorite comic series. It's not hyperbole. That is not, it's so dumb I like it. It is wonderful. I love this character, and I should be working her into every deck, and I just can't.
Can't do it. So, yeah, we love our comic books. And those right there were the cards that are better in the comics than in Marvel Snap. Thanks a lot for joining us. Make sure to tune in tomorrow for the next installment of Snap Material.